order our meeting for the Statesboro City Council. We will have our invocation and pledge of allegiance by Council Member Paulette Shakes.
Heavenly Father, we come before you this day saying thank you, giving you thanks for bringing us successfully through the Thanksgiving holidays. And God, I ask now that you would continue to provide us with the wisdom to govern the city, God. And I continue to ask you for unity within our city so that we can get the job done that you seek to have done. Bless everyone in this room as they go about their daily endeavors. In your name, Jesus, I pray and thank you. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 3, public comments. Any public comments, Liz?
No, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move down to agenda item 4, consideration of a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes for the work session and council meeting for November the 17th, as well as a consideration of a motion to approve execution of documents to amend service delivery strategies, agreement to include listing CDBG as funding mechanisms and include reference to the Statesboro Bullock County Land Bank. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, discussion, could we just hear a little bit more about B?
Okay. Kane, if you'll give us a little bit of insight on that.
Mayor, Council, this is an amendment of the service delivery strategies. Since we are going to be recipients of Department of Community Affairs grants through GITCH and CHIP, we need to put that on there, and also we need to do, we need to put a reference into the Statesboro Bullock County Land Bank, since they will be authorized to conduct business in the GITCH program. And furthermore, there have been issues with other towns in Bullock County received not having CDBG listed as a funding source, so that was fixed throughout the entire document. But the main things we're putting in the CDBG as a funding source, and also including the Bullock County, Statesboro Bullock County Land Bank in the section on housing and urban redevelopment. It does not change any financial impact on the city in any way or affect anything materially. It's just for administrative purposes.
Okay. And do we know if the other municipalities have already passed this?
They have.
They have?
They have.
Okay. All
I'll be the
right.
last one.
Okay, good deal. Any further discussion by council?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we'll move down to, is there, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll move down to agenda item 5, which is a public hearing, first reading of ordinance 2020-12. Ordinance amending Statesboro Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, Section 6-7N4, allowing alcoholic beverage package sales to commence at 11 a.m. on Sundays. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Kane, if you will, give us an overview.
Mayor, Council, House Bill 879 was passed by the state of Georgia recently, and it allows local jurisdictions to permit package sales at 11 a.m. on Sunday. Currently, the city of Statesboro does allow on-premises sales to begin at 11 a.m. on Sunday. That was made possible through voter referendum in November of 2018. So since Statesboro already has the voter referendum on that, it is possible that just council action be taken in order to commence package sales at 11 a.m. on Sunday, as opposed to 12:30, which is now allowed.
Okay. Thank you, Kane. All right, is there anyone here to speak for this request? Is there anyone here to speak against this request? Okay, seeing that it is not, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and any discussion by council? Hold on, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, now is there any discussion by council? In regards to the first hearing on number 5? Okay,
The only change is just moving up the time.
yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
And this is what the state has already done, has allotted.
Right. And since we already had the voter referendum that allows the restaurants to begin serving at 11 a.m. on Sunday, we do have voter approval to, under HB 879, to allow package sales to start at the same time on Sundays.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll move to agenda item 6, which is a public hearing, first reading of ordinance 2020-13, an ordinance amending the Statesboro Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, Section 6-7, allowing delivery and drive-through sales on alcoholic beverages. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Kane, if you will.
Mayor and council, another aspect of that House Bill 879 was allowing local jurisdictions to allow, to permit delivery of alcoholic beverages pursuant to revised OCGA Section 3310. The proposed ordinance, a revision to the Code of Ordinances, Section 6-7, strikes the language that it is unlawful for delivery to be made in the city of Statesboro and replaces it with the language that licensees may deliver malt beverages and wine in unbroken packages lawfully sold to and purchased by an individual for personal use and not for resale to an address designated by such individual within the corporate limits of the city, subject to the terms and conditions found in OCGA Section 3310 as amended in the rules and regulations as promulgated by the Georgia Department of Revenue relating to delivery of alcoholic beverages. The other revision to Section 6-7V1 is there was a prohibition, or currently there's a prohibition on drive-through sales in the city of Statesboro. This revision allows for drive-through sales as well.
All right, thank you, Kane.
And there is no state prohibition on drive-through sales, just to clarify.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone here to speak for this request? Is there anyone here to speak against this request? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll open it up for council discussion.
So my understanding is this came about as a COVID, in response to COVID, to make it safer for folks to acquire their refreshments?
This is longstanding Georgia law that drive-through sales are permitted. This came up at the presentation at the work session, and I was directed to strike the prohibition on the drive-through sales. That is not reflective of any change in state law or any sort of emergency measures. That is longstanding along the state of Georgia that is allowed.
Any further discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll move down to agenda item 7, our public hearing, first reading of ordinance 2020-14, ordinance amending the Statesboro Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, removing Division 4, Sections 2 through 60 through 263 relating to the Statesboro Works Commission. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Kane, if you will.
Mayor and council, this is a revision to the Statesboro Code of Ordinances, specifically as to the Statesboro Works Commission. On November 17th, Mayor and council revised the One Borough Commission ordinance to include the scope of authority previously held by Statesboro Works Commission, and furthermore increase the membership size of One Borough to hopefully incorporate whichever members of Works want to continue to serve. What this revision here would do is just simply strike all reference and ordinances relating to the Statesboro Works Commission.
All right, thank you, Kane. Is there anyone here to speak for the request? Anyone to speak against? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any council discussion?
My only question is, why after 2 years of forming this, we're now disbanding it?
The reason for, is because previous council action gave the scope of authority previously held by Statesboro Works Commission to the One Borough Commission. So the scope of authority will still be covered, and there's no reason for the duplicity in the
Yeah,
ordinance.
I understand the legal reason. I'm trying to figure out the practical reason. You know, we had a number of council meetings that talked about this workforce commission, and then 2 years later, here we're disbanding it. So I'm just curious as to why that happened.
It's not being disbanded, it's being placed into another space.
Okay.
Okay. All right, with that being said, any further discussion by council? All right, seeing that it is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, we'll move down to agenda item 8, which is a public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2020-15, an ordinance amending the Statesboro Code of Ordinances, Chapter 62, residential subdivision incentive program by replacing the current code with a new Article 1 and Article 2. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Kathy, if you will. Go ahead.
At the council work session, staff reviewed a plan to, with the recommendation to amend the current ordinance. We currently have some subdivision incentive, a subdivision incentive program in our current ordinance. I think they were established in like 2001, and so here we are in 2020. And so Ms. Kathy Fields and Assistant City Manager Jason Bulls went through several iterations, about 16 different iterations of what those incentives should look like. And so what we have before you today is we have a couple of recommendations. One that incentivizes middle income type neighborhoods, but also recognizing that we need workforce type housing and being a part of the GIT community cohort. What you have before you is also a plan to incentivize workforce type housing as well. So what staff did at the work session is we showed you a return on investment for 2 different types of subdivisions. And staff is prepared, if council desires, to walk through that presentation again this morning. And I think Councilmember Boyan asked for to see what the return of the investment would be for some of the smaller subdivisions, and we do have that information as well. So staff is prepared to do that if that's if council is interested in seeing that information. We'd be glad to share that.
Whatever pleases the council. I know we've already seen the presentation on one, but not the presentation on the other.
And we did
Yeah.
include that information in your packet as
Yeah.
well that went out on Wednesday.
Yeah. So I'm open to whatever council's pleasure is. Do you want to see both presentations or the one that we or the one that we have not seen?
The one that we haven't seen.
Okay. Any other? Okay. So let's take a look at what we have not seen.
Okay.
Whatever's easy, it's the synopsis and then the.
Just get down.
One thing on council?
Would you just review the one right before this?
Sure.
Just real quick.
The Article 1?
Couple more.
Yeah,
There it is, yeah.
Okay, so currently, we have in the budget through funding in Public Works and Engineering budget and in the budget for natural gas and for water and sewer. We have a combined funding in FY 2021 of $825,000. So what we did was I ran through some cost estimates associated with R20, R15 out of Article 1 and R8 out of Article 2. So if you take the $825,000 that's currently funded, assuming that it's approximately 60 lots, base that on an average $275,000 home. This is comparable to a Myrtle Crossing subdivision or a Pepper Ridge subdivision, which we currently have in the city limits that was previously funded through the subdivision incentive program. So if you run the numbers on that, taking out tap fees, approximately $69,000 in tap fees, and an annual projected revenue at full build out with $804 per home and property taxes, based on that $275,000 value and utilities, you get a return on investment period of about 6 years for that example. For an R15, go ahead.
Just real quick, where did the 825 come from?
So
That's 10,000 per lot plus?
well, that's currently what we have in the budget for the FY21 budget. We currently have 820. We have 175,000 in engineering. We have, I think, 250,000 in natural gas, and we have 400,000 in water and sewer. And that's based on what we previously funded for Moss Creek, or excuse me, for Myrtle Crossing and for Pepper Ridge.
Right.
And so we just, when we went through the budget process this year, we placed the funding in there respective to what we previously funded. About 60, would be about for 60 lots.
I'm sorry, I guess my question is this: if you have a 60 lot subdivision, it's $10,000 per lot, right?
Correct.
So that would be 600,000
Right.
for a 60 lot sub. Kathy, am I right on that? Because except for
Yes.
the subsidized housing is more, but
That's-
for a regular subdivision, $10,000 per lot.
That's right. That would be for the 400,000 in water sewer and the 175,000, which we would be contracting, just like we did with the old register TAD and the previous subdivisions. We would contract with a developer to have those infrastructure installed.
Sure.
The natural gas, we would install ourselves.
Oh, I see.
That's why you don't see for 60 lots, you don't see, the.
That's where the extra 225.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
thank you. That's what I
That's where
wanted.
the clarification is on that. Because we would do that infrastructure ourselves, as we normally would, and have in the past. So the same math for R15, based on a $175,000 home. This will be comparable to Moss Creek near Mill Creek Park. That was previously incentivized by the city. You see return on investment for that example at 9 years at full build out. Any questions on this slide before we skip to the next one? All right, go one more. Another one. There we go. So what was not previously included was the Article 2 R8 example. So we already have $825,000 in the budget. Clearly, we're not looking at putting an 80 lot subdivision in an R8 neighborhood, in a GIC neighborhood. We wouldn't want to saturate and throw off the balance of the existing neighborhood. So internally, what we've discussed would be, as we go through the review process, if we were to receive an application for an R8 GIC neighborhood, would be to cap that 10 lots, 12 lots, 8 lots, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we can get some incentives going in these neighborhoods, so we can get some development going, so we can create a catalyst project that spurs some reinvestment in the neighborhood, without throwing off the balance of the neighborhood. So I based this example on 10 lots with an estimated home value of $100,000. And we have standards. If you read through the ordinance, we have standards for all of these lots. So there's a minimum standard that each lot would have to still be built at. So the return on investment for this example would be 9 years at full build out based on that.
And the other part of the reason for doing for the smaller number of lots is that we have more locations where you can put a 10 unit subdivision. It's going to be hard to find someone to put a 60, 80 unit.
That's right. And we wouldn't want to support a 50, 60, 70, 80 lot subdivision in a GIC neighborhood that would totally throw off the balance of the existing neighborhood. We would want to slowly put the investment in a controlled manner in those neighborhoods. Any questions?
No, and just for council, the reason I ask these questions is especially on these types of things when we're incentivizing economic development, housing development, commercial development, whatever the case may be, it's all about getting that money back and putting ourselves in good position down the road. So that's why I asked Jason and Kathy and Charles to put the ROI information in here, because I think that's important. You know, when we take this money and give it to a certain developer, well, we've taken tax dollars from everybody and incentivized a few folks. Well, what does that mean for everybody else? Well, the return on income, or the return on investment, that's the benefit to the city. So that's why I asked him to bring this information for us.
Yes, sir.
And Mayor, I also think it's important to remember, we included these funds in this year's budget, but as we go further, the hope is that we will leave these funds in place, even if we don't give any incentives this year, but we'll look to fund more the next year. Because it may take us a while to get these folks rolling, and to see the return that we're looking for in the city.
Yeah.
And once we get through the second reading and approval of this ordinance, if it's the will of council, Kathy and I are prepared to do a full educational marketing campaign to get this information out to the community, to the development community, and make sure that everyone understands what this is about and what this is for. Trying to encourage some of the development that you see in Bullock County come back into the city limits.
That's what I was gonna, speaking of that, I keep hearing that the city's too expensive to build. So, I mean, have we, sorry you county folks don't like sidewalks, but we do in the city. I'm just saying, we like our trash pickup too. I don't wanna put my trash in my trunk, you know what I'm saying? So, that being said, have you talked to the development community, and how does this balance that disparity, that perceived disparity?
Yeah, so several developers and engineers have been talking with Kathy and myself for over a year now, looking to get these incentives brought back into the city. And one of the things too with this ordinance is the current ordinance has a lot of these incentives broken down in unit pricing, which is basically contractor language.
Right.
Not necessarily developer language. Developers look at it on a per lot cost basis. And so we've tried to take the current unit prices from about 20 years ago and bring them into present value and translate it into a per lot cost. So that everything's comparable, and we're speaking the same language with the development community. But they're excited and they're very interested to see this. A lot of developers, from what we're hearing, are waiting to see what happens with this.
Well, that's good. And then I'll ask this one more time. Just in order to get this incentive, you have to put in gas, right? Gas has to be included in your.
Yeah, so we have.
Not just in the street.
So currently,
to the house.
Yeah, currently we don't have, but we can amend the ordinance for the second reading. But we don't have a requirement to actually have a gas fixture. We have gas available by meter at the home. But we can take that a step further if that's the will of council.
You need to do that.
In other words, it's the difference between running the gas line to the side of the house
That's right.
and running an actual line into the house that can be used.
That option needs to be there, because I live in one of those neighborhoods, and I can have gas logs, but I can't have a gas stove or gas dryer, and I would like both.
Now, Charles, all we gotta do is rip up your tile,
We not gonna do that.
dig a trench through your living room, and we can run gas right to your kitchen, no problem. Cost you 50,000 shots.
Mayor, I do want to just share that I have been in the city 30 days, and I had a visit from some engineers asking for these incentives.
Okay.
But I felt it was important to be here for a while before we just come forward and make this type of recommendation to you. So I do recommend it.
All right, thank you.
Mr.
And
Mayor, I've got a question or a statement I want you to confirm for me. So basically, this is good for the city because we're incentivizing people coming in and building homes in the city. So that's good for anybody who wants to live here and can afford a home. And it's good for the city because we get the money back and the services. But the second benefit that I'm really interested in, we've got two different plans basically for lower income and for higher income homes. So the additional advantage to the lower income homes is to make more homes available, to help more people own a home and live in the city. So the city gets the money return on both, but there's that added advantage of helping the people who haven't been able to have homes. Am I understanding that correctly? There is a separate incentive for the lower income?
All of the above. We want to increase tax base, but we also want to,
Help
we
people
want
buy
to
homes?
help human capital as well. We want to make it so that folks can afford to buy a home, but we also, through the GET community, through some of the funding that we're looking for, we also want to do homeownership counseling. It's one thing just to have these homes built, but if you're not preparing people to be homeowners, you're really sort of wasting your time. So you have to approach it in a comprehensive fashion, that you're dealing with the whole person, not just one aspect of it.
Sherry, you ever been on Circle Drive off of Jet Road up in my district, or north and south Easy Street? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
It's just, to try, for a developer to develop a little neighborhood like that, it is almost, it's a costly loser for them, big time. So, and that's what we're lacking big time in the city, is those little, and that's only, I think Circle Drive's got what, 12 homes in it maybe, and North Easy Street, they got maybe 14. So, you know, these little pocket neighborhoods with affordable houses, and we have plenty of room in the city for that, but it's just from a material standpoint and a labor standpoint, it's just really hard for anybody to make those work financially. So, knock on wood, this will help that.
This is just one little prong of the multi-pronged effort to make better opportunities for all the Statesboro citizens,
Just one
especially in regard to homeownership.
Just one hole in the shower head, yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. It's just a way Sherry kind of put things, right? You know, just make you feel like you're doing good stuff when Sherry.
That's what we're here to do, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. Okay, so everybody's spoken, but Kathy, are we good on this? We good?
Hey, she wrote it.
I know, right?
We recommend it to you.
Thank y'all very much. This is, you know, for the lack of a better term, I think I'll go to my go-to. This is a big deal for the city. So this is really good stuff. I'm proud of the work that the staff and council is doing on this. With that being said, is there anyone to speak for this request? Come on up, Mark.
I want to offer another advantage that did not get mentioned, but it's an important one. And that is, this will bring some little higher income people into these lower income neighborhoods, which as long as you aren't pushing low income people out, actually improves the neighborhood for everybody and actually helps the low income people feel better about themselves, feel better about their neighborhood. Things look a little better. It generally helps everyone to float further up to the top.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Marcus. Marcus gave us good stuff. All right, is there anyone here to speak against the request? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing? All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Any council discussion? Okay. All right, with that being said, is there a motion to approve?
Mayor,
Sorry.
I was just gonna make that motion with the amendment that we require, or you can make the motion and I'll float it.
Yeah, well, I'm already directing staff to do it.
So it needs to be in the motion because it's
Does
not.
it need to be in the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
To require what would you say, a gas stub out inside the home
Yeah.
to be written into the.
Hold on one second. We want to rescind that, first motion to improve. Phil? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I would like to make a motion with an amendment to the ordinance that says that a gas line stub out has to be required to be installed inside the house, or whatever language you guys need to do that.
Okay.
And in all three, or wait, it's only 2 instances, 2 or 3?
Two.
2, yeah, in both cases.
Okay.
That's my motion.
And that's not considered substantial, correct?
It's not.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, clarify for me, so that's gonna get gas to the side of the house, it's not gonna require them to put in a gas stove?
No, it'll
It's not
require them to
gonna-
run a gas line into the house with a turnoff valve.
Yeah.
The problem Charles had with his house is they had gas run to the house, but it's just to the outside. So in order for him to install it, you'd have to punch through his house, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you have it's like having an electrical outlet in the house as opposed to just your service run to the side of the house. So it makes it easier to install hot water or gas later on because the gas is already inside.
Yeah.
But it doesn't prohibit somebody going total electric if they
No,
want
No,
to?
no, it doesn't require it.
But the option is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard in some neighborhoods for people to install gas because the cost of just getting the gas into the house. So it would save them money over time and it would benefit the city since we own the gas system. So it's like the water system. So it's good for us long-term to have more gas go. So, is that a good enough motion there,
It
King?
is.
Okay.
It is, Councilman Boyd.
All right, does anyone want to second, Councilman Boyd's good enough motion? All right, we got a second one, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, good deal. We'll move down to agenda item 9, public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2020-16. Ordinance amending the Statesboro Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, businesses, adding Article 11, Sections 18-306 through 18-315 regarding regulation and licensing of mobile food service units operating in the city of Statesboro. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Okay.
Mayor and Council, this is an amendment adding in Chapter 18, Article 6, mobile food service. What this does is it allows for, or it requires the permitting and licensing of the individual mobile food service units. That would be both push carts and food trucks. And it furthermore requires location site approval for each place that these mobile food services operate. The idea being that the unit would get approved, would come in and get permitted, and would also, along with the specific sites they anticipate using, those would be approved as well. And if further sites come up, then those would need to be approved by city administration as well. It sets out all the operational requirements, what is required for permitting the food trucks. I had spoken with Hannah Womack, who's here, with Big Boy Cookies, about a couple of concerns that they had with it. So there have been a couple of revisions since this was presented at work session. One of which is that, one thing that we want to make very clear was that these units would be allowed to operate in all zoning districts. I think that's extremely important for food trucks, is that they would operate in places where brick and mortar restaurants are not. That's the whole point of them. So we went ahead and clarified that, just so there's no ambiguity as to where they are allowed. Also, there was a prohibition in there that said that the food trucks could not operate if they were within 200 feet of a brick and mortar restaurant. I have amended that so that if the owner of the restaurant and the food truck are the same, that prohibition obviously wouldn't apply. And also, it could be waived with the consent of all brick and mortar restaurants within that prohibited radius. When it comes to brick and mortar restaurants, there's another prohibition that, and this one is still in the ordinance, that temporary seating is not allowed if they're within a food truck or push cart. Well, push carts can't have temporary seating, but food carts can have temporary seating if they are more than 400 feet away from the closest brick and mortar restaurant. The main reason that where this got pushed to the forefront was by our fire department. We wanted to make sure that the NFPA standards were in here. Just for public safety reasons, it's important, especially if there's going to be a clustering of these units, that they all be approved pursuant to the NFPA requirements. And I also changed the fine schedule for violation. It is now $250 for first, $350 for second, and $500 in revocation of the food service unit for third violation, and that's with a 12-month look-back period.
All right, thank you, Ken. All right, is there anyone who wants to speak for this request? Come on now. Did you bring the cookies?
I'm so sorry.
No. All right, normally everybody gets 3, now you got 30 seconds.
Sorry, guys. So I'm Hannah Womack, my husband and I own Big Boy Cookies. We have a brick and mortar as well as a food truck. So we appreciate Kane and council for allowing us to be a part of this ordinance. I did have a proposal to possibly edit one little thing in there. So one of the things that's a part of the ordinance is the 200 feet from the brick and mortar of a restaurant, which I completely understand. But I was referring back to some of the ordinances from Savannah, Atlanta, some of these other cities that's been doing it for a little bit longer, and specifically Atlanta's ordinance. And one thing I was hoping to do is change the wording just a little bit to say that it would be the same 200 footage from other restaurants selling the same or similar items. So if you're in, if you're in a area where there's lots of restaurants around, but you sell desserts, but it's kind of a different kind of food, or if you're in an area that, or you're around a restaurant that does primarily Mexican food, and you and you've been asked by another business or another private entity to come and maybe cater or something like that, and you serve fried chicken or something, something that's it's
You're not going to go
different.
from hot dogs to Mexican food.
Right, so it still protects our local businesses and brick and mortars, but it also gives a little bit more flexibility to the food trucks to allow them to come in and kind of lessens the restrictions and makes it more appealing to come here and do business here in Statesboro. And another thing would be to consider the actual establishment or restaurant's operation hours. So if that restaurant closes, at 5 o'clock and they're wanting to do another place is wanting to have the food trucks out to do an event at a later time frame, and that establishment is closed, for that to be considered as well, since they're not going to be open, it's not necessarily going to affect their business, but it also allows, again, more flexibility for the food trucks to come in and feel like, this is definitely a place to come and do business and worthwhile for sure. So that was one thing. And then the other thing is, and I don't know if this is something that would need to be discussed at a later time or by someone else, I'm not sure. But I would ask that council consider the actual vendor fees that were set forth by the city of Atlanta, which are actually a lot more affordable and reasonable for businesses versus, not knocking Savannah at all. But they actually charge the vendor fee, the initial rate, and then once you renew each year, it's actually a lesser. You still pay you still do the renewal, the paperwork, but then you pay a little bit less of an amount than you would in the beginning, the initial start of the process. And I think that's just beneficial as an incentive to keep coming back each year. And just to throw the numbers out there, and, again, I don't know if this is the proper place or time, just let me know. But for example, Atlanta, they charge the vendor fee of $145 for initial application and permitting. And then the renewal each year is $125 to renew, and it's a separate process altogether. You're not filling out the same initial lengthy package that includes a lot of the same information. You're actually, just coming back as the same,
Okay, so the initial fee is $145, and then thereafter the renewal fee is $125.
$125, yes.
We don't have the fees listed in
No,
here.
we-
They're not, they're not,
That's not
and-
for today.
Yeah, but just,
When we approve it, that's
We'll have
when
to
we.
amend the schedule, fines and fees to include
Yeah.
but that's not relevant.
Okay, okay, good deal. And so we want to keep this in mind as we, okay, good deal. So that's what we'll do. And then I know there was another piece for us, the making sure within 200 feet of individuals selling the same type of food. With that, what is council's thought on that?
I think that kind of makes sense. I mean, the 200 feet, like she said, if somebody is selling hot dogs, but I sell seafood,
Yeah,
you know, I'm not in competition, and that was the main thing, correct? To not be in competition with the business that a food
Yeah.
truck will be near. So I think that makes sense if it's doable.
okay. Council?
I can see how a restaurant would see it as competition, that somebody's not gonna come in and buy my $5 hamburger if they can get a $1 hot dog on the street right in front of me.
I want to
Hamburger
say,
and hot dogs are kind of the same. You know, if it's totally separate, like if you sell candy, but I'm selling food,
well, I think the idea for a brick and mortar restaurant, they have significantly more asset investment
Mhm.
Right.
than a truck.
correct.
And so for somebody to drive the truck up and park right next to your building that you've been paying a mortgage on for the last 10 years, might chap your, you know what, a little bit. That being said, to overcome that, for example, if you're talking about the Midtown there, where you guys are with if all the restaurants in there say thumbs up,
Yeah.
as long as you get permission, you can park wherever you want.
So
Right.
that's
It's just,
already.
you can't just park
That's
wherever
already
you.
in.
Yeah, so
that's
that's-
That's what I'm
already-
getting at, yeah.
right, that is in there, however,
Yeah.
from experience, this can still be an issue, and I could see where businesses could be difficult to work with on this matter. So if you
Yeah.
go through and get all the approvals if you have 10 within the 200 feet, you've got 10 people that are agreeing to it, and you've got that one person, you get all your letters, and then you present it to that one person, and they're like, no, I'm not doing this. It's so much of a waste, and for just that one person to say. And something too that I really was hoping that other business owners and just, council, the city of Statesboro would consider, is that, what we're trying to do, a lot of the things that are happening in the city are a means to bring people to Statesboro and want to come here and not just bypass us to go to Savannah. They want to come here to Statesboro. They want to live here. They want to raise their families here. And so any incentive, and I know you're thinking, okay, food trucks. Okay,
no,
but not
that's
right.
my business, yeah.
But if you look at bigger cities that are growing, it's a fundamental part of the city are food trucks, and not just a handful, which is what we have right now, because again, this is all new for Statesboro, but lots of food trucks, bringing them in from, and I feel like it's good economically for the city of Statesboro and for the business owners, because again, as a brick and mortar, we speak to that other brick and mortar restaurants as well. Like, we want people to come to Statesboro in general. Like, we
Yes,
want this
exactly.
to be like a place where people want to come.
Yeah.
So allowing the food trucks to come in and easing the restrictions some, providing that flexibility to bring them in, that is incentive for them to come here. And, the people of Statesboro and the business of Statesboro, that's good for them to bring those people in. So just throwing that out there, but, I appreciate y'all's consideration even in the first place. So, but yeah, that was the gist of.
Okay. And so we still have a second reading. My initial take right now is let's get to the second reading. And then kind of go from there. And I'm of the thought process is that if we pass it, it's not perfect and we need to come back and make some amendments to it, we can do that. Right now, I'm comfortable with the caveat to get approval because what I feel like is any business owner could say, I know they selling cupcakes and we're a steak restaurant, but we have desserts too. So that's what my concern would be. But I do like us having in the space that they have to get their approval. So let us go there. If we move to a culture where food trucks become more prevalent, then we may want to come back and revisit that. But in the midst of this, we're gonna need you or either Alan Muldrew to spearhead a food truck festival. Once we get past this COVID
Yes.
situation,
Great.
so I can eat more good food.
That's right. Thank y'all.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hannah. We appreciate you.
Mr. Mayor, let me clarify with Kane, is it a substantive change to add what she requested about if the business is closed, then there's no worry? Different hours, that's not in it now, correct?
Right, it's whatever y'all, that's not substantial enough to swing it back.
Okay,
But,
so I like what she
You
was
wanna
saying
add that?
about if it, if the restaurant closes at 6, then the food truck could be there for a downtown event. Does that make sense?
I don't think this is a downtown problem. I think this is more like out in the city. You know, if there's a downtown event going on Vine Street, I mean, you can park 50 trucks up and down Vine Street, you're not gonna violate anything, because, I mean, the only place that's there is the coffee shop, and probably David's not gonna have a problem with that.
Well,
My take is I'm kind of on the same page with the mayor on this. I think we've taken a huge step forward for food trucks.
Yeah.
And we're just taking a little consideration for the existing restaurants that we have,
Mhm.
who have invested lots of money in their buildings and their facilities and things like that. So I totally understand, and you know as well as I do, a food truck is gonna be a lot cheaper, it's gonna be, you're gonna have better profit margins on that food truck, knock on wood, right? So, I think this is to your point, to the mayor's point, I think this is a huge step forward from a food truck standpoint, and just a little bit of protection for the restaurants, and if we find that those little tweaks need to be made down the road, I'm not normally a big fan of that, but, if we need to tweak it, we can tweak it later. That's just
So you're
my-
saying don't change it
I
now,
would say-
don't put in the hours? If there's no conflict, there's no problem there.
Because you're only talking 200 feet too. I mean, so
Yeah.
if you want to be 220 feet away from that bar that closes at 1 o'clock in the morning so you can sell some cookies to some hungry young college students, just park 200 feet away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me tell you, they'll stumble over and get some cookies. They come a lot farther than 200 feet to get your cookies.
All right, any further discussion by council?
Yes, I just have a question for Kane.
Mhm.
Just in layman terms for me, if an individual wanted to operate a food truck from start to finish, tell me what they have to do.
they'd have to get the actual food truck inspected by the fire department, would need to be, and would need to get their license from us in order to operate. That would also be their occupational tax certificate. And then they would need to get site approval for everywhere they wish to operate, and that would be approved administratively as well. And of course, as part of their application to get ours, they would have to have health department approval as well.
So their first step would be coming here to get an application?
I would think it would, they
Or the
need
fire
to,
department.
they'd go through the health department,
Oh, the health department?
right? Because that's going to be the big one.
You know,
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up. The only concern I might have actually with the location approval is, are you gonna have to approve every single location?
That's how it goes in the jurisdictions I've looked at.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because the question is, you've got to ascertain that it is proper, allowed to operate at each spot for viewpoint reasons, and also to make sure that you have approval from the property owner in order to operate there. We're banned from, they can't operate the public right of way anyway, except for during special events.
Right.
So yes, we're going to need to make sure that they have permission to operate, and that all the obstruction and all those, site obstruction and all that is not an issue. So yes, each individual site would need to be approved, and that's how it goes in all the ordinances I've reviewed. So there's the
Of course,
unit
that-
approval and the location approval.
Of course, that excludes any kind of DSDA special events. or
Right,
whatever else, you know.
right. And also all those and the proximity, that we're talking about, the proximity, that would not be an issue during the special events, DSDA special events.
Right.
And they would be allowed to be on the right way, but otherwise, we do need to make sure that they're able and have permission to operate where they're operating.
So the first step is to go to the health department, food department, to get an application, then go to the fire department.
Well,
Did-
yes, because you need health department approval before applying.
Okay.
Can I just add something really, really fast? If they were to come here and all those I feel like most people would come to the city first because they're gonna wanna see what regulations the city has. So if that could be included in the actual application itself, like these are the things that we need to see, or that we need to have on file for your food truck, you know, that would be a good kind of guideline or guide, because they can go to the health department initially and get that, but if they're interested in doing business specifically in Statesboro, it would probably be helpful just to have all of these things outlined in an application that can start here at the city and then
Of
move
course,
forward.
Yeah,
of course, we
Yeah.
would do that.
And
Okay.
this is the first step.
Yeah.
Not an ordinance at all.
yeah, exactly. This is something we've been talking about since 18, so. Yeah, so that's a good deal. So with that being said, if there's no further discussion, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
All right, is there a need for council discussion? All right, seeing that it is not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 10. There needs to be a correction for 10, instead of FY 2020, it should be FY 2021. 10 reads as follows: consideration of a motion to adopt resolution 2020-32, a resolution approving the city of Statesboro's proposed FY 2021 street surfacing program and authorizing the mayor to execute the Georgia Department of Transportation Local Maintenance Improvement Grant application. Grant matching funds will be provided from 2018 SPOS funds. Mr. Penny.
And this is the mayor's favorite topic.
It is.
Street resurfacing. We have to submit to GDOT our list of streets that we would like to have included in the local maintenance annual program. They basically will give us just under $300,000 a year. And what we will do is we have to match that with 30% matching. However, we actually have in T-SPOS over $700,000 that will be added. So with the funds that we can get from GDOT and the funding from T-SPOS, we will actually have over $1 million available for resurfacing in the spring. And so you have in your packet a list of the streets that we are including for submittal to GDOT as a part of the LMIG application. And Mayor and Council, we do recommend approval of this list so that we can submit it to GDOT, so that hopefully we can get the funding, the annual funding that we become very dependent upon.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any discussion by council?
Just a question, clarify for me, the list that we're submitting, that this is how we anticipate using the funds, is that ironclad, or can we make adjustments if greater needs appear?
Typically, the list that we're going to submit are going to be the streets that we're going to do. If the budget, after we bid it out and it comes in under, we might can add streets. But typically, the list, these are based on ratings, street ratings. And so it's not, the ones that we're submitting are going to be the ones that we're going to be working
They're
on.
the ones that's in most need.
They're the ones in the most need. And so we might can add some more, but we wouldn't necessarily go in there and pull them out.
Thank you.
And see, in the last year, and I shared this with the mayor, last year we did this in a work session, and we went through and we showed y'all how we rate the streets. And so that information is important in preparing this list.
Yeah. And so, and this council is not, well, the new council members have not been through that process.
This is their second.
Oh, so y'all seen the rating process?
Last year.
Yeah. Yeah, y'all getting old.
Actually, it was this year.
This year, okay. That's what I was thinking. I was like, you know, but I'm like, well, maybe off. Yeah. Okay, good deal.
That was like the first work session.
Yeah.
That was the first work session?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, they jumped right into streets and resurfacing.
The fun stuff.
And then,
Right, that's good, that's
Then the
good.
and then
pandemic.
cold.
Then COVID, right? Yeah.
Mayor, I do have a quick question for Jason.
Go ahead.
I see a lot more 3s and 4s on this than than we have in the past, which is good. Getting to these streets a little earlier before they have some of the damage is actually, I guess my point being, and this is a little bit to Sherry's point, not all these roads are like crumbling apart, but they need some work. My point is sometimes it's a heck of a lot cheaper to catch it early before it has a problem than to let it deteriorate to the point where it's got potholes and things like that, correct?
No question. What you want to do is you want to get it before it gets in that poor or failed condition. Because once it gets in the poor or failed condition, it's going to cost you a lot more money to repair it. And so we want to get it before it gets to that point. And so that, and council members don't like this, and once a street is failed, it's failed. And it really can't get any worse. We just don't want to see the streets in Statesboro get to that point, because it just takes so much more money to repair those streets at that point.
Because now the substructure fails and things like that, right? Yeah. Now you're gonna make sure nobody cuts into these brand new streets like they did on Jeff Road, all right?
Oh my God, I got to slow down. I got to slow down.
I about crashed into that lady's house.
Yeah,
I mean, there was still steam coming out of there, cutting through it.
It never fails. You try to plan to address all those things under.
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
But as soon as you pave it, somebody's gonna need.
Yeah, they could, because I take Jeff Road every day, and I'm like, it's beautiful coming through with the new road, and then you see the spots, right?
There's a big old damn rectangle on the road, and it's missing part of the paint.
I know it, right?
Kill it,
Yeah. All right, but with that being said, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right, we'll move down to agenda item 10, which is other business from the council. Is there any other business from council? No? We good?
Nothing here.
No? We good? Okay. We'll move down to agenda item 12, city manager comments. Any comments from the city manager?
Mayor, I want to call on Miss Kathy since you haven't heard from her today.
Yeah, you know I like to hear from Karen.
I
Kathy comes with good stuff.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
You got somebody following you.
Yes. For several months now, we've had a vacancy in our department with one of our planners,
Okay.
and it was a planner 2 slot. And so what we did is we promoted Justin Williams from planner 1 to planner 2,
Okay.
and we have filled the planner 1 slot with our latest employee, day 2,
Okay.
Elizabeth Burns.
Hey, Elizabeth, how you doing?
You made her work one day before Thanksgiving?
And Elizabeth is a graduate of Oglethorpe University in Atlanta,
Okay.
and then just recently completed her master's in urban and regional planning from Clemson University,
Okay.
and she has studied in Wuhan, China.
Way before.
And was participated in a program at Oxford University.
Okay.
So we are delighted to have her, and Justin has been busy acclimating her to all of our permitting procedures and whatnot. And so we're thrilled to have her, and I wanted you all to have the opportunity to meet her.
All right.
Welcome,
Hello,
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. And I hear your dad is a great man.
Yeah.
I've heard that, but you know.
Yes, I was dad to you, right? Okay, good deal. Well, you tell him we said hello, okay?
Yeah, I will.
Absolutely. Are you acclimating to Statesboro?
Yeah, I'm getting used to it.
Okay, we got some good food here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you on board.
Nice
Welcome.
meeting y'all.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kathy. All right, anything else for city manager comments? That's it.
Mr. Kenny, could you, thank you for sending it to us, but for the benefit of other people here, could you just recap where we are with our COVID relief efforts? How much money's been dispersed roughly? How many households served? Mr. Mayor, is that okay?
You caught me off guard.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we, with the housing piece, I think we spent just under just under $20,000
Okay.
through last week, and I have not gotten a report this week on the housing portion, but they were significant. There may have been an additional 8 or 9 homes or families that were helped, but it represented about 33 people in the household. And so far, no foreclosures have we staved off, but these were people that have had significant impacts from COVID and would rent, in some cases, as much as $2,700, and that's not just, that's maybe 3 months. So we were able to help those families. And we got utilities, a report last week, and I think we were just shy of about $2,900 in the families that we helped in that regard. As far as the small business grants, we are in the process of making contact with about 36 businesses to inform them of the grants that would be awarded. We will not, at this point, it doesn't look like we're going to award the full $75,000, but we will award probably close to about $60,000.
Okay.
And then we'll open it up and see if we can finish out the funds. But if we don't, we don't. But there are significant needs in the community. And at the next council package, we'll send out more updated information.
Okay.
But it's going well, and we appreciate United Way, Action Pack, and the Business Innovation Group for the work that they've done so far.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any further comments on the city manager? All right. Seeing that it's not, on the agenda we have former Councilmember Jones for public comments. How you doing?
Great, good morning, Mayor, council members. Last meeting that we talked about, you guys talked about Loretta Moore, and that was great, something we've been talking about for a long time. In fact, 2015, one of the first things I said, we need a pool back there on this street, Loretta Moore. And I'm grateful, like the mayor said, it's a big deal. A pool is coming to Loretta Moore Park, and the community is happy, citizens happy, I'm happy. We need that pool. We'd like to see that pool being constructed so they can do competitive swimming, you know. So that basically means that you cannot have that lower portion that Councilman Barr talked about. It needs to be like a standard pool so they can learn how to compete on Olympic status. I think Statesboro may have some Olympic swimmers coming up soon. And this and that. Tennis, you know, tennis was on the agenda at one point where it was part of the plan. And all of a sudden, tennis is not there. And I talked to all my friends, I said, hey, you guys trying to play tennis? You know? So there's a lot of people who are concerned. In fact, I asked them to come here with me. They were saying they got to work there on things, and they said, we'll back you up, man. Please go tell the mayor and the council members that we'd like to have a tennis court at Loretta Moore Park. There are a lot of people who like to play tennis like myself. I'm going to teach my grandson great sport. So consider putting a tennis court back at Loretta Moore. It used to be a tennis court back there at Loretta Moore.
Yeah.
People like to play. In addition to that, there's a lot of scholarship money available. Train them while they're young, grow up and become superstars with tennis, or swimmers. Very important to take care of you. We talked about return of income. What a better return of income as to taking care of you. Now, I say train them so they can become educated folks. If not, later on, we have to expand our jails. I'm personally anti-jail. So consider the pool being competitive, designed so they can learn how to be competitive swimmers. If they want to have fun, we got to splash. You know, this one splash, have some fun with it. Learn how to swim, very important. I just became a swimmer. Well, learn how to swim. I've been in the water forever. Always been my lifelong dream. Learn how to swim. Conference is a good thing. Now I want to say, let's teach kids how to swim. Check out the Honey Bowen building. It's one of our oldest tennis courts. Needs a lot of work. So that's something to consider. Mayor, council members, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. right, so we do need a, executive session. So agenda item 14 is consideration of a motion to enter into executive session to discuss personnel matters, real estate, and/or potential litigation in accordance with OCGA 50-14-3B. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Mayor, before everybody else departs, can we just call attention to the fact that our public works folks, John Washington and Amanda, put on a very successful electronics recycling event during
Oh,
the
yes,
summer.
they did.
I'm really pleased, there's 15,000 pounds of old electronics that's not going to the landfill. It's being recycled and used in other areas. So a shout out and a kudos to them for arranging that and to Statesboro for bringing their stuff and recycling it when they have the opportunity.
Thank
Do
you.
it more often.
Yes, and she's saying twice a year. We'll see what the demand is, maybe more often.
Yeah. I got a few things I can bring in there.
I mean, honestly, it's amazing that the new technology really shouldn't go in the landfill. All those widescreen TVs,
Mm-hmm.
I think they need to be recycled versus going into the landfill.
Exactly. Okay, so we'll get ready to move into our, executive session. They kind of go from there. We still waiting on our food.
Vote on the executive session.